Good morning, everybody. Thank you to NIATx and SAAS for having me here. It is a real honor to be here. And just, it's an honor to get to, I wish it could be a conversation, but maybe we could have that later, but to speak with everybody in this room out of profound respect for the work that you do. I know it's not easy, and I know it's really hard, and it humbles me to get the opportunity to share some of the stories of what we've learned at Common Ground with you, at the hopes that, from what I've heard, you've gotten a lot of ideas from the last couple of days here, and also a lot of rest and relaxation. So it's my hope in the next 7 minutes and 45 seconds. I think that's supposed to restart to, yeah. In the next, let's say 45 minutes to really share some stories and with the hope that it stimulates your thinking about what you can do when you go home. So I think, how can I get the slide to go up there? You got it, all right. So Buckminster Fuller, one of my heroes, and this is a quote that kind of guides my thinking about all the work that we do, really talked a lot about problems, and he was, kind of a nutcase about Spaceship Earth and stuff, but he had this great quote that when we solve problems, we don't get to utopia. We get to bigger and bigger problems to solve. And I see that as our challenge as a people, and certainly our challenge in ending homelessness. And that's the frame from which I think about all this stuff. And that's what I was thinking about this morning when I went on a walk. And I grew up in Arizona. I grew up in Scottsdale in the early 70s before Scottsdale is what Scottsdale is today. It was just dirt roads. And quick story, my dad used to take me on motorcycle rides. I would kind of sit in between his legs and hold onto the handlebars through the desert, and it was just nothing but desert in Scottsdale at the time. And there was one hill that was so steep that it scared me as a little kid to go up, and I was like, Daddy, let me off the motorcycle. I don't want to go up that hill. And I'm sure he was like a big chicken, and disappointed in me. But he took me off the motorcycle and he plunked me down next to a cactus that looks just like this one. It's a cholla cactus. You've probably seen them around here. And it's also, the other name for it is a jumping cactus. Has anybody had that experience? When you get near it, it actually jumps on you. And I was like, ow, and he had to drive me home on the motorcycle, and then my mom took all the little, one by one, took I think maybe 30 little cactus prongs out of my little 6-year-old kid arms. And so as I walked this morning, I remembered that. I was like, wow, there's a jumping cactus. I need to stay away from that. And in my head, I was thinking, all right, what can I really talk to this group about today? And I was like, I'm going to tell them this, and then I'm going to say this, and you need to go off the path and the road less taken. And as I was on the path, I saw you can't really get to the top of the hill from the path. Did any of you do that little walk around here? You can't really get to the top. So I went off the path, and I ran right into a jumping cactus again. And I got all these stickers on my legs and stuff, and I just had to laugh. And I was like, if the point is to go off the path, so that you can see the other side and everything, which I think is a great metaphor. I didn't learn a whole bunch from when I was 6, so watch out for the jumping cactus. It's not all clear blue skies, but it certainly is worth going off the beaten path to solve some of these problems. So bear with me, and we'll try to stay away from the cactus. But what I'm going to tell you is a couple of stories that is really just one great big PDSA cycle. My job as the Director of Innovations is to try new things and figure things out, and often I feel like my job title really should be the Director of Creative Failures. And when things don't work, they have someone to blame, and it's me. But every now and then we strike gold. And I want to tell you some stories of striking gold and some just really pretty abysmal failures. And be hopefully in the honesty about that, we can all learn. But we do have a kind of a formula that we've evolved to at Common Ground for how you solve really hard problems. And you'll see this again and again in these several little anecdotes that I'm going to tell you. The first is go to the hardest part of the hard problem. One of my teachers at West Point tried to console me once when I thought something was really hard. He said the hard things about hard things is that they're hard. And I think that I felt a lot better after he said that. I was like, thank you for that wisdom. But it's really true. And in your field, in what we're trying to do, there are some just really vexing problems. And I think that's where the juice is, and that's where the energy, and we just kind of go running right into those situations. Then there's getting the ground truth, which is another carryover from my military training, is they call boots on ground, where you're actually right there, face to face with what's going on. And there's a lot of ways where we try to do that. Mostly, though, in this field, it involves very deep listening to what people actually want and need, because often they can partner with us in solving these problems. We have revised our mission statement at Common Ground again and again and again, because we realized at each step, you know what, we could actually solve a bigger problem than the way that we're conceiving what we can do with what we have. So along that Buckminster Fuller mindset, I think there's something about being open to being able to solve bigger problems than you think you can solve. And we have also pretty radically changed the way we've done business over the years. Just in the 6 years that I've been at Common Ground, they've changed business a lot. I'll tell you a couple examples where there's a lot of gnashing of teeth, but it turned out for the best. And we really look at data, and that's what drives our decisions. So let me just jump right in. So first thing I want to make sure everybody understands is homelessness is a different field, in fact, but your people are our people. So I want to tell you about Liz, and she's okay with me sharing her story. In fact, she's really hopeful that other people hearing her story can be a helpful thing in their lives. Liz had been on the streets of Times Square for over 6 years. She would ride the F train, which is also the train that I would ride, asking for money to feed her heroin habit. And in New York City, the old system that used to be when I came onto the scene was if Liz had wanted housing, then she would go to the shelter, and then the shelter would get her housing. But Liz didn't want shelter. She wanted housing, but she didn't want shelter. And through the Street to Home initiative, which I'll tell you a little bit about, we got to work with her. We got to know her, and we only started working with her. It's pretty clear, I think, from looking at Liz that there might be some health issues going on, but we didn't start with that. We started with what does Liz work, some pretty classic motivational interviewing stuff. And she did want housing. And I think you can also see here that when this happens to somebody, this is a failure of every system of care. And I think that's what homelessness is, a dog pile of a failure of every possible system of care that could have stopped this from happening in all the way. Going back to the family, the neighborhood, the school systems, huge school failure, the healthcare system, the behavioral health system, the housing system, all these systems fail. So that's who shows up on our door. And one day she realized that we were actually really serious about getting her housing, and this is very common when we work with people. And we develop discrepancy and all those things, but we let them decide, when they want to go get the treatment. And she realized she was really going to move in, and she pulled me aside, and she was like, "Psst, hey, I don't want to screw this up. I really believe you that I'm going to get housing this time, and I've ruined it before. Would you help me get into treatment?" And as soon as someone says that, the red carpet goes out, and a staff member actually literally takes them to the hospital, because far too many times when we don't go with them, when we just write a little piece of paper like a referral, never works. So we hand carry them literally to the hospital and stay with them until they are admitted, because even just getting them to the front door of the hospital doesn't work. You have to stay with them until they're admitted. We learned all these things through PDSA cycles. And they didn't have room at the detox that night. But they said that they could put her in a general hospital bed and she could go to the detox the next day. And she was very uncomfortable, and she was in withdrawal. And she said, "I would be willing to do that, but can you give me some methadone in the meanwhile?" And they said, yeah, honey, we'll give you some methadone, no problem, just come on in the hospital bed. And we felt at that point that we could leave, and it was, as usual, this happens at like 9 o'clock on a Friday night, So the staff left, and Monday she shows up at the office again, at our office, and we're like, "What are you doing here?" And she said, "They didn't give me the methadone." And my staff person said, "Well, I don't blame you, I would have left too." So there's no judgment, that's how we roll. And then we said, "Do you want to try again?" And she's like, "Yeah, I'd really like to go to detox, actually." So we took her again, and this time, for whatever reason, it stuck. So she shows back after 28 days in rehab, and in a lot of ways, this is the magic of the work that you do. So, one more time, this is the same person. And we worked with her to get her housing. She reconnected with her family. She found out they had been looking for her in the morgues, which was actually probably a good place to look for her, and I'll get into that in a minute.